Welcome, everyone. This is the webinar Implementing Comprehensive Sexuality Education, Strategies for Success and Sustainable Impact, a side event of the Regional Forum on Sustainable Development for the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, taking place today and tomorrow in Geneva, which is a regional meeting ahead of the annual high-level political forum on the 2030 agenda in New York next July. First of all, I would like to inform you about two technical issues to ensure the good running of the event. The event will be either in Catalan or in English, so you are invited to choose your preferred language from the translation channels. You can find them at the globe icon at the bottom right of the toolbar on the screen. The event will be recorded and will therefore also be made available on YouTube at a later date. Secondly, I would like to thank the attendees and the participants for coming together to discuss such an important matter. In that sense, it is foreseen that the participation of the attendees will take place through the questions and answer section. That is by chat, so that the microphones and cameras of the attendees will not be able and will only see the camera of the panelists. I would also like to kindly remind all of us that this is a safe space for debate, where all contributions and comments are very welcome, and where it is kindly requested to avoid any expression that infringes on the fundamental rights of individuals or groups. Finally, as you will see now on the screen, the agenda is going to be as follows. First, we will have a welcome remarks as an institutional welcome from Gabriel Boixat, delegate of the Government of Catalonia in Switzerland. Afterwards, we'll have a first panel with keynote presentations with the issue Decoding Comprehensive Sexuality Education, a Pillar for Health, Gender Equality, and Respectful Relationships. Afterwards, we will have a panel with inspiring experiences from Catalonia and beyond as a way to present comprehensive sexuality education in practice. And finally, we'll have final remarks from Sílvia Aldebert Garcia, which is the director of L'Associació de Drets Sexual i Reproductius. I will present you each panelist in each part of the agenda afterwards. So thank you all again for being here, and let's start this side event on comprehensive sexuality education as a means to contribute to the achievement of SDG 3 and SDG 5, which are two of the SDGs being specifically reviewed this year at the high-level political forum on the Agenda 2030. I give now the floor to Mr. Gabriel Boixat, delegate of the Government of Catalonia in Switzerland. Gabriel?
Sí, hola, molt bona tarda a tothom. En primer lloc, vull agrair a les dues entitats que organitzeu l'acte d'avui, a Catesco i a l'Associació de Drets Sexuals i Reproductius, per la invitació a acompanyar-vos, i especialment aquest acte organitzat, que és un acte paral·lel oficial al Fòrum Regional de UNECE sobre el Desenvolupament Sostenible 2025, que té lloc avui i demà aquí a Ginebra. Però també crec que és important felicitar-vos perquè l'educació sexual i reproductiva i la defensa dels drets associats sempre s'han enfrontat a dificultats i a resistències, ho sabeu molt bé, i tot i les evidències científiques sobre l'impacte positiu que té en les persones. Però si sempre ha estat un repte, ara ho és i crec que ho serà encara més. Els grups, les persones o institucions posicionades en contra dels drets humans són cada cop més nombroses i per aquests moviments ultraconservadors els drets sexuals i reproductius són un objectiu predilecte dels seus atacs. Per al govern de la Generalitat de Catalunya, la defensa dels drets sexuals i reproductius forma part de les seves prioritats i es reivindica l'exercici d'aquests drets implica poder expressar i gaudir dels nostres cossos i de les nostres sexualitats sense cap mena de violència ni discriminació. Així, com bé sabeu, des del Govern, el Departament d'Igualtat i Feminisme desplega polítiques de drets sexuals i reproductius. Una comissió interdepartamental impulsa la implementació i l'Estratègia Nacional de Drets Sexuals i Reproductius fixa com a objectius la consolidació i la millora de drets reconeguts, com ara el dret a l'educació sexual integral en totes les etapes de la vida i el reconeixement de nous drets. Però, aprofitant que l'acte d'avui és precisament un acte paral·lel oficial del Fòrum UNECE, no vull deixar de recordar la importància que té el multilateralisme. És en aquests espais on es conversa, es discuteix i s'aproven resolucions i estratègies que permeten avançar en drets també en els contextos més adversos. Soc conscient que de vegades el sistema de Nacions Unides pot semblar llunyà, complex d'entendre i fins i tot de vegades pot semblar poc eficaç a l'hora de resoldre algunes injustícies. Però la força de determinats mecanismes de defensa de drets humans, com ara el Consell de Drets Humans amb seu aquí a Ginebra o l'Agenda 2030, permeten avançar en agendes que acaben generant polítiques públiques que consoliden drets fonamentals. Per tant, és clau fer sentir la nostra veu i fer les nostres aportacions. Per al govern, i així ho ha expressat en múltiples ocasions el conseller d'Unió Europea i Acció Exterior, Jaume Duch, la presència de Catalunya en els espais de Nacions Unides i les seves agències és absolutament prioritari. I quan parlem de la presència de Catalunya, no ens referim només a la del govern, sinó al conjunt de la societat. La societat catalana és rica, diversa i compromesa, i és imprescindible que aquesta força tingui la voluntat i la capacitat de poder treballar en àmbits com el de Ginebra, el de Nova York o el de París. Catalunya formem part d'un espai de valors europeus on la defensa de la democràcia, de la llibertat d'expressió i la lluita contra la desinformació i, per suposat, la defensa dels drets humans és absolutament innegociable. I en la defensa d'aquests valors, la societat catalana en el seu conjunt hi té una llarga i valuosa experiència. Per tant, per l'oportunitat que representa, però també per compromís, per responsabilitat, és important la nostra implicació en tots els espais on els drets humans estiguin sobre la taula. I aquest, el d'avui, és un espai més des on construir aquesta defensa dels drets. Per tant, benvinguda a la discussió i les reflexions de l'acte d'avui que, des de la rigorositat, les dades i l'expertesa que ho portareu, ens ajudarà a marcar el camí cap a un món millor. Moltes gràcies.
Gracias, Gabriel Bochat. Thank you. I will make now a parenthesis because it seems that there are some problems with the channel in English. Could any English speaking confirm that you have heard in good quality the presentation of the delegate, please? Maybe Susanna, Kathleen, that we are going to make your part now. Could you please open your camera and confirm us if you have listened properly the presentation of Mr. Gabriel Bochat? Thank you. No? Okay. Okay. Then we will work to arrange it because it is then quite a problem. But still, as we are going to make now all the presentations in English, we are going on with a seminar. Okay. Now we move on to our keynote presentations under the theme Decoding Comprehensive Sexuality Education, a Pillar for Health, Gender Equality and Respectful Relationships. Our first speaker is Kathleen Shaw, a program specialist at UNESCO with over 15 years of experience leading evidence-based programs across West Africa and globally. Kathleen is deeply committed to advancing sexual and reproductive health and rights. Her expertise spans education, gender equality, public health, and digital innovation. Today, she will provide insights into UNESCO's framework for comprehensive sexuality education, its key concepts, and the challenges in implementations. Following Kathleen, we have Susana Medina, program lead at FÓS Feminista, with over 2 decades of experience in sexual and reproductive health and rights across Latin America. Susana brings a wealth of knowledge in gender justice, advocacy, and intersectional feminist strategies. She will discuss the key factors that determine the success of comprehensive sexuality education programs and how they can be effectively implemented. We will first have a first presentation of each one, and afterwards we will have some time to comment on other panelist presentations and on the attendees' questions written on the Q&A chat. So, Kathleen, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are joining today. It is a real pleasure for me to be here with you at this really important side event of the UNECE Regional Forum on Sustainable Development. We are here today to discuss how comprehensive sexuality education, or CSE, plays a pivotal role in advancing the Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG 3, 4, and 5. And at its core, CSE is about empowering children, adolescents, and young people with the essential knowledge, skills, and attitudes that they need to navigate their current and future lives. So let's explore a little bit more why this matters even more today than ever before. Education has the power to transform lives, and it has the power to transform the world around the lives of learners. At UNESCO, inclusive and transformative education starts with healthy, happy, and safe learners, because children and young people who receive good quality education are more likely to be healthy, and those who are healthy are more able to better learn. Yet the world today presents profound challenges for young people. These statistics on the slide are just a few. About 1 in 3 students experiencing physical violence in schools, adolescent girls facing high risk of pregnancy-related deaths, and 73 million children around the world living in extreme poverty, unable to really meet their basic needs. So only through ensuring access to education for health and well-being, including good quality CSE, will all learners be able to be prepared to thrive in their lives. So what is comprehensive sexuality education? Very simply put, CSE is a curriculum-based approach that helps young people to develop knowledge, skills, and attitudes and values to make responsible, informed, and healthy choices about their lives and their relationships. When delivered effectively, CSE empowers young people to lead healthier, safer, and more fulfilling lives. So the definition that you see on this slide, it appears in the UN International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education, which is a very helpful resource that includes very rich guidance for the design, the implementation, and the assessment of comprehensive sexuality education programs. You'll see on this slide here an overview of the key concepts and learning topics that are recommended by the United Nations within this international technical guidance. And what I'd like to stress here on this slide is that CSE goes beyond biology. It teaches about human rights, gender equality, consent. It is infused with social and emotional skills. It focuses on respectful relationships, among many other essential and vital topics that are critical to ensure that young people, as well as their communities, are healthy, that we advance gender equality, and that we can ensure positive educational outcomes. So what makes good quality CSE? Good quality CSE is characterized by the aspects that you see here on the slide. I won't read all of them out, but we can see how critically important it is that sexuality education be grounded in scientifically accurate information. It must be age and developmentally appropriate. It must be gender transformative and grounded in human rights. And it must also be context appropriate. And here I'd just like to stress that while CSE is grounded in universal principles, the most effective programs are those that are tailored to the specific cultural and national contexts in which the programs are delivered. So why is CSE so critical for health and well-being, for gender equality, and for education? we have extensive research from around the world that really demonstrates how CSE contributes to these important sustainable development goals. Here on this slide is just a small example of some of the synthesis of evidence that has been done in recent years. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at what the evidence says. First, we know that CSE's contribution to improved physical health, especially sexual and reproductive health, is very well established. There are decades now of research that confirm that CSE can contribute to improved sexual and reproductive health outcomes, reducing the risks of STIs like HIV and unintended pregnancies, all without, I stress, without increasing sexual activity or without increasing risk-taking. But CSE's benefits go well beyond physical health. New and emerging evidence is showing how CSE can strengthen social and emotional well-being. In fact, a new multi-country and mixed method study commissioned by UNESCO has shown that not only does CSE help to enhance learners' understanding of relationships and helps them to develop social and emotional skills in the short term, this new study is showing how this learning through CSE improves the quality of relationships between young people and their parents, their peers, and then eventually their romantic partners in the intermediate term and most likely also in the long term. So there are long-lasting effects of CSE on social well-being. We also have evidence that shows how CSE supports learners to treat one another with respect and dignity from a very young age. It empowers them to seek support from trusted adults if they have questions or concerns. And it helps learners to recognize coercion and violence, as well as make safe and informed decisions. We're also seeing that CSE really is a pillar of transformative education and for gender equality. Health and well-being are foundations for learning, and research undeniably shows that health disparities represent a strong barrier to education and learning. For example, many students will miss school due to preventable illness or treatable illnesses. Menstrual health challenges can hinder girls' participation and sense of safety at school. And bullying doubles the likelihood of students skipping school. On the other hand, when learners feel safe, when they feel supported, when they feel healthy, they are much more likely to stay in school and to better perform in their learning. So where does CSE fit into all of this? Well, without knowledge and skills for sexual and reproductive health, learners face risks that can hinder their education. And this can include early and unintended pregnancies, which lead to absenteeism and are associated with lower academic performance. HIV also remains a barrier to learning, especially in settings with limited access to treatment. And currently, and unfortunately, this lack of access to HIV treatment is a growing concern. Access to quality CSE can foster healthier relationships, reduce risk factors for poor health, and build pro-social skills, all of which contribute to better learning outcomes. We also know that school-based sexuality education can lead to sustainable impact. Schools can reach millions of young people, making CSE a scalable and cost-effective solution. When CSE is integrated into curricula, this ensures long-term knowledge retention, long-term behavioral change, and continuity of learning across grades and learning levels. And we also know that when delivered in a gender-responsive and gender-transformative way, CSE helps learners to develop gender-equitable norms and equips them with the skills to prevent and respond to gender-based violence. While more research is needed in this area, evidence does suggest that CSE can be a powerful tool for advancing gender equality. But despite its proven benefits, school-based CSE still faces several challenges. These relate to content limitations, where we see that many curricula remain heavily focused on biology and often treat sexuality and sexual and reproductive health from a negative framing and use fear-based language. This while lacking coverage of key topics that adolescents and young people really want to learn more about. A new global study that will soon be released from UNESCO is showing that adolescents and young people have a strong demand for more comprehensive learning on body changes, consent, mental health, relationships, and violence prevention. Many of them feel that they learn about such topics too late, and only 49% of the study participants around the globe mentioned that they felt that their sexuality education fully equipped them for real-life situations. Teacher preparedness and a lack of teacher confidence are also challenges, with many teachers lacking the specialized training that they require to feel confident and comfortable to address complex topics. They also often feel ill-equipped to deliver participatory learning methods, which we know are more effective for being able to build the skills as part of CSC. The learning environments in which learners are exposed to also can represent challenges. We're seeing from multiple studies that many learners feel unsafe at schools. And when they feel unsafe, this limits the impacts not only of CSE, but of learning more broadly. In terms of digital education, we know that digital solutions are offering incredible new opportunities for learning, including in CSE. However, many students still lack access to important technology, and many education systems are struggling to address issues like misinformation and different forms of online harm. There's also a need for greater domestic financing because policies and legal frameworks must be backed by financial commitments. Recent studies have shown, though, that while many countries are investing some resources into their health education programs, including CSE, funding remains inconsistent and insufficient. And in today's context, where global development assistance is under so much strain, domestic investment in CSE is ever more critical. Social and political resistance also represent challenges. And in the interest of time, I believe my co-panelists will be speaking to this in more detail. So I'll continue on to see how we can move forward. What are the implications for our policies and programs in CSE? Here are but a list of a few important considerations that would be great to explore together. The importance of investing in strengthening our teacher training and support. And of course, the importance of cross-sectoral collaboration, especially between education, health, and child protection, as well as many other sectors. We must start CSE also at an early age and ensure a progressive continuity of learning throughout schooling. We are also learning from all of the evidence that CSE cannot be implemented as a silo, but must be embedded within a whole school approach that completely supports the health and well-being of learners. We must enhance safety and inclusivity of learning environments for our learners and develop context-appropriate ways to integrate engaging and interactive teaching methods. So with this, I will end my presentation and just highlight that CSE really is a catalyst for change. It is a driver of gender equality and a foundation for better health, as well as a pathway to quality education. So I look forward to hearing from the other speakers and engaging in the rest of this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kathleen, for this inspiring speech. Thank you for sharing the framework, the emerging evidences, and also the benefits and challenges that we are facing today with this education in sexuality. And thank you to give some importance to this aspect of the comprehensive, the whole approach that we need in this to face all this challenge. We have now we'll have now the presentation of Susana Medinas from FOS Feminista. Susana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you very much, Kathleen, for your presentation. It was great, and it connects very well with my turn to talk about what are the key factors of success of comprehensive sexuality education when it's implemented in the Global South. So I will share lessons learned from the Global South experience of the FOS Feminista Alliance. To start, I want to just introduce FOS Feminista. We are an international feminist alliance. It's a feminist action platform of solidarity in a momentum marked by the rising tide of the vibrant feminist movement. We are a Global South-led alliance, and our mission is to advance sexual and reproductive health, rights and justice for all women, girls, and gender diverse people. This is a map where you can see the countries where we work in partnership with more than 130 partners of activists, coalitions, movements, and organizations in around 39 countries worldwide. Our strategic commitments as a united alliance are first to expand care and services for contraception, abortion, sexual and gender-based violence, and comprehensive sexuality education, CSE. We also work to transform laws and policies and social norms, which is our advocacy work. And we strengthen intersectional feminist movements and organizations in order to foster sustainability and collaboration. So based on these goals in the description of the countries where we work with, I wanted to share, connecting with what Kathleen explained, what are the main challenges that we have faced to implement CSE across the Global South. Although there are multiple agreements and international standards and guidelines as UNESCO about the importance of implementing CSE, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as well, there are still multiple challenges for implementation. In terms of regulation, policies, in the Global South, there are countries without any regulation or weak legal frameworks on CSE. Therefore, there is a lack of secularity, youth approach, human rights approach, and universality on CSE. So teachers have not access to technical capacity, and education systems is not integrated. CSE is used sometimes as a form of criminalization on some specific issues, such as HIV, criminalizing HIV plus communities, or increasing stigma and criminalization to abortion in countries where there is a very restrictive legal context. So in those countries, usually there are high rates of pregnancy for girls under 15. So it means that the adherence of the CSE curriculum is more focused on reducing fertility rates from a biological perspective. For the other countries where there are a more robust legal framework, like Mexico, for instance, the challenge corresponds more to financing and the process of territorialization, updating and follow-up. Data is key. And in those countries, there is not official data available. So there is not transparency. It's not possible to be accountable, for governments to be accountable regarding CSE. In these cases, the main role of government for this challenge is to build a CSE curriculum to provide guidance on what components should have, but also how to implement and how to measure performance and its effectiveness in those contexts. Of course, other challenge is the increase and expansion of anti-rights groups, which includes anti-gender groups, some religious institutions, parents' association, and others that started, for instance, in Peru with the campaign Con mis hijos no te metas, a movement in opposition to CSC, which mainly targets LGBTIQ communities and the advance of human rights agenda. Then the PIN Parental in Mexico, which is also in other communities of the Estado Español. Then in Chile, there were an attempt to restrict the access to education institutions for civil society. So these are ways to threat the CSC movement, and of course the funding, because some governments, as we are seeing now in Argentina, definitively cut funds for CSC. And it's not only the problem of the funding itself, it's about the massive anti-rights narratives against vulnerable sectors based on pseudoscience, which affects definitively the environment to make CSC possible and to enable CSC. Public funding is the key factor, because funding is a prerequisite for CSC curriculum. So there is a need to ensure budget and mechanisms of regulation and implementation of those budgets, including accountability. And of course, a democratic crisis and political environments affect the implementation of all programs, including CSC. We have seen in the past 5 years how, in context, for instance, as Ecuador has faced a huge democratic crisis, economical crisis, humanitarian crisis. I'm talking about the whole global South. So these are the main challenges. And now I will tell you what are our collective main learnings as FÓS Feminista Alliance on effective youth-centered and context-responsive CSC facing those challenges. These learnings might inform governments, civil society organizations, and education actors on how to build a CSC curriculum to provide guidance on implementation. There are some cross-cut factors which are key to achieve a CSC curriculum effectively implemented. Funding as prerequisite for a CSC curriculum, evidence-based curriculum. Kathleen explained very well all the components. An ecosystemic approach to facilitate multi-sectorial implementation, and it is important in order to convene organizations instead of put them to compete for funding, which is a way to fragment the ecosystem. Includes intersectionality to ensure that all the diversity of communities are engaged. Technical accompaniment for teachers and education actors. For instance, the CSOs, organizations of the civil society, are well prepared and trained to do this work. And the key formula for a comprehensive strategy which combines care, which are services, CSC as education, and advocacy in order to strengthen the positive social norms in the social environment. Innovative CSC programming, which should start linking access to services and education, ensuring that we integrate mental health. And of course, these services also address gender-based violence. Digital is here, so there is a need to transform education and services for sexual and reproductive health. It means use the tech for good, which entails balancing innovation and accessibility for sexual and reproductive care. Community buy-in, which means to develop strategies inclusive that are meaningful for communities, resonates with the needs of the communities. Narrative of change to counter opposition and building support. I explained about the anti-right groups. In our experience, the digital youth engagement for harnessing social media is key, as well as strengthen their safety and digital skills to navigate in the digital spaces. Meaningful youth engagement, which entails youth-friendly services. It is not just about provide care for young people. It is about youth-centered models of provide care, as L'Associació runs in Catalonia. Youth engagement, which goes beyond the tokenism. It should foster genuine leadership. We have the advocacy in practice program, and you can see this young man who is speaking on behalf of his organization, Women for a Change in Cameroon, and he was part of the program. And of course, reinventing CSC, including innovative approaches for greater youth engagement and gender transformative education. I could mention the artivism, which is a combination between art and activism, all interventions developed by communities. Sustainability is critical. It should entail flexibility as key factor when planning. Implementation, because it's important to be ready to adapt to crisis and context that change. It's with CSC we need to navigate within political instability, and it's important to have the big picture of the world, what is happening now, to don't lose what is important in terms of political dynamics. Strengthening from within. It means to strengthen capacity building, institutional capacities in organizations that develop a CSC. It means that funds should strengthen these institutional capacities within their plans, and of course goes beyond the project life cycle, which means that we need to develop good indicators and measures of impact for long-term impact on health, as Kathleen explained in terms of health outcomes. And finally, collaboration, knowledge sharing, and collective learning. It is important in terms of, as civil society, we build together evidence to support advocacy. It means, demonstrate why it's important to invest on CSC. The evidence is there, but we need to be careful on the use of pseudoscience, which is affecting the civil society advocate role. Have clarity, what are the data. Stronger together, the value of collaboration, regional collaboration, knowledge sharing. As an alliance, we have created the center, the CSC and Youth Friendly Service Center, which main role is to strengthen capacity within the organizations of the alliance, and Ahun will speak later, is one of the leaders of this center, a global center. And the feminist in practice, it means apply the feminist values when we work. It is about collective work, it's about trust, it's about building relationships for sustainable collaboration, and decolonizing sexual and reproductive health and rights. It means dismantle North and South dynamics. For instance, the possibility to learn from transnational learning from different experiences is part of a way to break this colonial dynamic. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susana. Thank you for sharing with us these main challenges to implement comprehensive sexuality education across the Global South, and also the main learnings that you have made in FOS Feminista, and all these issues that you have pointed out that I think that are really inspiring to see how we can better improve on that. Okay. Now what we are going to do is I will give the word again to Kathleen, just to see if she would like to comment on Susana's presentation. above all regarding all these issues about sustainability, about innovation, and the role of collaboration. She was talking about feminist values, decolonizing, and the importance of working on all that, and in collaboration also North and South countries. So Kathleen, what would you say from UNESCO on that? And afterwards I will transfer to you also a question that we had in questions and answers chat.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Susanna. That was a really excellent presentation. I couldn't agree more with all that was shared. And I think you raised some really important points, especially that your work is really demonstrating what is emerging and what is real from a global South perspective. There's so much learning from many countries around the world that unfortunately we don't hear about as much, perhaps because of language barriers, resource barriers. And so it's so vital that we are learning from these, global majority countries. I would love to hear more though, because I know FOS Feminista, one of the aspects of your work that is so exceptional is your way of engaging with communities. And I saw in your presentation how important it is to engage with various stakeholders. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about community engagement and what have been some success stories to ensure that we have CSE not only in a whole school approach, but also a whole community approach in which we have broader communities supporting this form of education.
Thank you, Kathleen. So Susanna, you may answer, please. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, Kathleen. As I mentioned at the beginning, it was a good connection, and FOS Feminista and UNESCO have been great partners during these years, creating and generating with organizations these learnings. In terms of community engagement, I guess that it's super important to recognize that schools don't include everyone, especially the more excluded communities, which are systematically excluded communities, are not in the institutionalization several times, are not going to school. And these are the more vulnerable communities that we need to protect and to care. And I want to tell maybe the good experience of our partner in Mexico, Católicas por el Derecho a Decidir, Catholics for Free Choice. They have developed a comic series, which names is Catolicadas. I can share by chat. And the idea to use these short videos is to work with religious leaders in communities, religious communities of faith, which is an important belief across communities, especially rural communities. So it's a key ally that we need to engage with if we want to be success on field. So with this series, this organization triggered discussions about gender, about equality, about sexual diversity. So the idea is how we can use a resource or a tool that resonates with those intersectional factors that combine communities. For instance, religiosity, ethnicity, race, migration status, how we can do interventions involving leaders and voices of those communities to be part of the process. To be a CSC program, it needs a curriculum, and it's the idea to have localized curriculums. I mean, curriculums that ensuring the key components recommended by UNESCO are able to respond to the specific needs of these communities. So this is one of the ways of community engagement. There are others that we can share in different conversations.
Great, thank you very much. We have just one comment, and I would transfer this question just asking you what would you say to families or other voices in society that are quite afraid of risking on hypersexualization or pornification when approaching sexuality education? What would be your recommendation? Kathleen, yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that question, and it's very relevant. I think this question demonstrates how, unfortunately, there are many misconceptions about what comprehensive sexuality education is. And in fact, when we have good quality comprehensive sexuality education in schools, this is a tool to tackle the hypersexualization or forms of sexual abuse and violence, or harmful social norms that use various aspects of sexuality to either oppress or discriminate against certain populations. So there are very rightful concerns, I think, when we can see how in many aspects outside the school system as well, there is the exposure to media, of course, social media, where these issues are really important to address. And what comprehensive sexuality education allows us to do is to have very open, evidence-based, quality, credible, legitimate kind of conversations with adolescents and young people, not only to offer the evidence-based information that is correct, which we don't, which is misrepresented in other sources, but it equips them with the skills for discernment and for being able to decipher what is good or healthy information from what is exaggerated, false, or unhealthy information. It equips them also with the skills for open communication for those that they can seek support from if there are concerns about these different issues. So it opens this channel for communication rather than siloing into the realms of taboo, where we know when something becomes taboo, this is where there's more potential for young people to feel quite isolated and without support. So I'll leave that answer there.
Marina, just to add something to the great response of Kathleen, FOS Feminista did a campaign last year for CSW, the conference in the UN, with image of different buses in the city about how family support CSC. And what we have found, it was an evidence-based campaign, is that families are key allies on the CSC. We don't need, it's not true that we should start believing that families are against CSC. For the opposite, they are great allies, and I want to reinforce the idea of a family is a concept that we need to reclaim and make our concept. There are different kind of families. There are diverse ways of being family. So reinforcing they as allies.
Thank you, perfect. And it is great to hear your answers on that. So thank you very much for this first panel. We will end it here. We will see you after the experiences. And now let's explore some concrete experience and best practices in implementing comprehensive sexuality education. Around the world, innovative initiatives have successfully established themselves despite significant challenges, providing valuable models for other contexts. In this segment, we will focus on 3 key aspects: lessons learned, so the things that we are going to ask to these representatives of the organizations that we are going to have. Which are the lessons learned? Which are the challenges encountered? And which is the impact achieved with their experiences? We will hear from L'Associació de Drets Sexual i Reproductius, with Jordi. Yeah, we have him here, with its experience in integrating comprehensive sexuality education into the compulsory educational curricula. Afterwards, we will have Escoltes Catalans. We will see here if we can see Anna. Hello.
The organization don't let me put the camera, so I don't know if we have to turn something on.
It is just a technical mistake. Okay, we are going to arrange that. So Anna, thank you for being here. And we have also a representative from AHUM, an organization pioneering comprehensive sexuality education in Pakistan. And Shiva, I think she's here also.
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Okay, sorry, I can't see. Yeah, we now can see you. We have, Anna here, and we wait for Sheena. Yeah, we have her here. Thank you, Sheena, Anna, Jordi. So let's know about your experiences. Jordi, can you start, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Marina. Thank you very much, UNESCO, for the support for the materials that inspired this experience. And let me just start with the sharing the presentation. Ho faré en català, perdó, és que vaig canviant ara una miqueta la presentació. Doncs gràcies per assistir a aquest acte i gràcies a les ponents que m'han precedit fantàstica des de FOS Feminista. L'experiència que us vull presentar és un treball que s'ha dut a terme per part de l'Associació de Drets Sexuals i Reproductius, en aquest cas per mandat i en col·laboració amb el Departament d'Educació, que és una experiència aterrada i pràctica del que abans hem vist que ens plantejaven tant des d'UNESCO com es pot aterrar un currículum educatiu, un curricular d'educació sexual en un context determinat que és el nostre. En aquest sentit, comentar-vos que des del 2019 va haver un canvi molt important a Catalunya, va ser l'educació va admetre que no s'estava fent educació sexual, fins llavors havia estat en una posició com negacionista en aquest sentit, però en aquell moment sí que es va haver un inici d'aposta per començar a treballar l'educació sexual de manera integral a les aules i es va aprovar la inclusió de l'educació 3 anys fins a quart d'ESO 16. I es va fer amb l'experiència d'intervencions educatives grupals com amb intervencions individuals, es va plantejar itinerari curricular amb els objectius bàsics a assolir en cada cicle educatiu i ara aquesta plantació recull els principals elements d'aquest treball. A partir d'aquí, les premisses del nostre treball eren molt semblants d'una altra manera que ens explicaven les dues companyes de FOS Feminista. Primer, la idea d'un abordatge integral i biopsicosocial de la sexualitat. Entenem que s'entén des d'espais. Basat en l'evidència dels estàndards internacionals, veurem també ara en aquest, amb una lògica feminista i de drets sexuals i reproductius en l'abordatge. És a dir, aquí sí que entenem que, com es comentava, no pot ser qualsevol educació sexual, enteníem que no s'hi val, qualsevol educació sexual entenem que no és respectuosa amb els drets i, per tant, entenem que aquesta mirada feminista és important. També hauria de garantir l'equitat en l'accés. Estàvem molt acostumats al nostre context a aproximacions que parlaven d'educació sexual però que no deixaven de ser petites intervencions en forma de tallers i això no garantia ni l'equitat en l'accés a tot el territori i tots els centres, ni tampoc un treball profund. Com a eixos transversals, la incorporació de la igualtat de drets, el respecte, la no discriminació, la diferència, la diversitat. També entendre que els adaptats a cada cicle educatiu amb aquesta progressió gradual els materials s'havien de treballar i les matèries veurem una mica. I en qualsevol cas, potser una mica de les premisses bàsiques que es plantejava, perquè també ha estat un debat, és qui havia de ser responsable d'implementar aquests continguts. Sí?
Sorry, Jordi, sorry for interrupting you. It seems that there are some problems with your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
May I give you my microphone so that...
Okay.
Sí, ara millor.
Has d'apagar el volum.
Un segon. Hola.
Vale.
Va, doncs m'esteu veient la meva pantalla, no? Sí. Va, doncs segueixo amb la presentació. Va, perdoneu. Espero que ara sí s'escolti bé. Disculpeu, doncs comentava que la importància que els equips docents seran els encarregats d'incorporar aquests continguts i assegurar una correcta implementació. Això vol dir que era des de la pròpia escola que aquests materials s'han de treballar i no pas des de professionals externs que hi vagin, el rol dels quals hauria de quedar limitat a un reforç, ja sigui de formació de formadors o per temàtiques més concretes. Aquí, evidentment, ens vam basar, com comentava abans la companya d'UNESCO, en els materials de referència, per nosaltres van ser la Bíblia. Ara tenim la sort que en breu ens consta que Catesco està treballant en la traducció d'aquests materials i en breu els tindrem traducció al català, cosa que és una fantàstica notícia. I vam prendre aquests materials com a referència, vam valorar les dimensions, com es comentava abans, i vam mirar de construir-ho, vam mirar d'adaptar-ho, tenint que aquests materials són recomanacions, són bases, i a partir d'aquí vam customitzar-les al que en aquest diàleg amb el Departament d'Educació se'ns sol·licitava. I en aquesta recomanació vam plantejar tant la passada de les 8 dimensions que plantejàvem abans, que comentava la Catherine de UNESCO, a 6 dimensions adaptades. En aquest cas, per exemple, la dimensió de violències quedava integrada en l'altra, ja parlàvem de gènere, les violències masclistes, i també quedava present la resta de dimensions. Fusionàvem dues dimensions, afegíem plaers i desitjos sexuals dins l'apartat de sexualitats, com un element també molt clau a treballar en l'educació sexual. I a partir d'aquí veieu una miqueta quines són les subtemàtiques que es treballen en cadascuna de les dimensions. Per exemple, en plaers, sexualitats i desitjos sexuals es treballava els plaers, imaginaris, relacions sexuals, cicle de vida, desig i consentiment, una mica els diferents subtemes. Perquè s'entengui una miqueta com es treballava, al final era com si ara, si fem una mica l'analogia amb matemàtiques, no? És a dir, en matemàtica entenem que igual un estudiant no pot passar del cicle de primària al cicle de secundària sense abans haver, i m'ho invento perquè no conec, no soc professor, doncs haver fet les divisions de 3 xifres o qualsevol operació matemàtica. En això estaríem parlant del mateix, és a dir, és un coneixement que ha de ser gradual, que és evolutiu i que hi ha una sèrie de competències bàsiques que cada alumnat haurà de tenir abans de superar els diferents cicles en les diferents dimensions. La base d'això, jo crec que és un tema que més enllà d'entrar en continguts puntuals no ens podem perdre, és el tema del que és aquest mapa general o aquest itinerari, en el qual sí que es pot veure una mica l'evolució des de P3 fins a quart d'ESO, de quins són aquests components bàsics a treballar. Posem algun exemple. La subdimensió d'autocura i salut sexual. En aquest sentit, per exemple, si mirem el treball infantil, en l'exemple de l'objectiu presa de decisions, ús de mètodes barrera anticonceptiva i dret al propi cos, evidentment no estaríem parlant que la canalla de P3, P6, de P3, P4, P5, estaria treballant aspectes directament d'anticoncepció, o d'avortament, o de mètodes barrera. No, què és el que es treballa? Promoure la identificació d'allò que es vol, allò que agrada, allò que rebutja, allò que es desconeix, incentivar l'expressió de la pròpia opinió i respecte envers l'opinió i l'expressió d'aquesta de cara als altres. És a dir, són com competències molt bàsiques que podrien ser atribuïbles o podrien treballar-se en moltes altres matèries en l'àmbit de ciutadania, de pensament crític, de propi aspecte de criança, i que pot ser útil per moltes experiències de la vida. Després, evidentment, a mesura que es va donant-se aquest gradient, aquest treball de capes, acabarien, quart d'ESO, per exemple, o al segon cicle d'ESO, treballant altres aspectes més socials, com per exemple comprendre que l'accessibilitat universal i la disponibilitat dels mètodes per anticonceptiu o l'avortament són bàsics per prendre la decisió, desenvolupar la mirada crítica, etc. És a dir, hi ha un gradient. No ens pensem que per treballar, per exemple, a plaers, que no entrem en aquest sentit, però que ja treballem el plaer sexual des de primera infància. No, a plaer parlem què vol dir el plaer, com es treballa, la gestió emocional i comunicativa, què ens agrada i què no ens agrada. I a poc ja anem incorporant aquest gradient de plaer vinculat a la sexualitat fins a arribar, evidentment, a cicles més avançats en els quals ja es parla estrictament d'aquest plaer sexual, com a la quart d'ESO, reflexionar sobre la sexualitat, l'impacte de la sexualitat en la pròpia identitat, etc. En aquest sentit també, i un cop tenim aquest mapa itinerari curricular, es van elaborar 6 dossiers per donar suport, en aquest cas, als centres educatius, als claustres, un d'infantil, 3 per primària i 2 de secundària, seguint una mica els cicles habituals del Departament d'Educació. Cadascun d'aquests dossiers el que volíem era donar una sèrie de suport en aquests centres que plantejava des d'un marc conceptual per treballar la sexualitat en cada cicle, perquè, a veure, idealment és cert que hauríem de treballar des de P3 o I3 fins a quart d'ESO, però no podem esperar que hi hagi una primera generació que surti sencera tot el cicle. Per tant, hi haurà algun professorat o algun institut que vulgui treballar ja des de segon cicle, encara que l'alumnat no hagi fet tot el treball previ amb aquest treball, i per tant haurà de poder tenir les eines bàsiques. Aquí cada capítol incorporava els objectius d'aprenentatge, el quadre de resum amb enllaços i fins i tot alguna proposta de fitxa pedagògica. A tall d'exemple, perquè l'important era que al final el professorat es fes seu aquestes eines i pogués desenvolupar-ho segons la pedagogia o segons el model educatiu de cada centre. També el que es plantejava, i això és una cosa que obeeix una mica també el model educatiu català, que és el treball per competències. És a dir, que, clar, això hi ha hagut el debat etern de si hauria de ser una assignatura pròpia l'educació sexual o hauria d'estar integrat dins el currículum dins d'altres competències. A Catalunya treballem per competències i, per tant, o àrees de treball, i, per tant, fins i tot aquesta proposta que es va treballar, suggeríem que determinades fitxes o determinades temàtiques on es podrien treballar. Per exemple, aquí, al cicle mig de primària, el treball de cossos o autoconeixement es plantejava. Doncs la fitxa 4 es pot treballar a medi social i a tutoria. Entenem que tutoria és un espai d'aprofundiment. És a dir, que d'alguna manera ho deixàvem com molt treballat perquè el professorat ho pogués implementar. Tots els materials estan penjats en aquesta web, tant el que seria aquest mapa itinerari gran com a les diferents guies. I ja per finalitzar, les conclusions, una mica a tall de reflexió. Una mica la reflexió que fem com a entitat és que ja es disposa d'un full de ruta alineat amb el Departament d'Educació, és a dir, l'aposta del Departament d'Educació és ferma o ha estat ferma en els últims anys, i jo crec que ens congratulem que hagi estat així, amb independència del canvi polític que hagi pogut haver, és a dir, sembla que és una aposta molt ferma en aquest sentit. Després, que allunyar aquests fantasmes de que sabem què fer, sabem on volem arribar i sabem com fer-ho. És a dir, ho tenim a les mans, sabem fer-ho, no cal que hi donem masses més invents. Evidentment, tot és millorable, es pot aprofundir, actualitzar, és una matèria viva, però ho tenim bastant clar, no? I més perquè hi ha molta gent que ja ens ha precedit, molta gent que hi ha donat moltes voltes, com escoltàvem les companyes de UNESCO i FOS Feminista. A més, tenim aquest material adaptat d'estàndards internacionals. Per tant, l'aposta final és una mica els reptes, que és el que ens manca. Bé, ens manca una part que avui no hi entrarem perquè no és l'objectiu de la meva presentació i no tenim temps, que és la implementació. És a dir, el paper ho aguanta tot, tenim aquestes eines que és una mica el moll de l'os de com treballaríem, i aquí sí que falta el següent pas, com implementem i amb tot el que implica la implementació de la política pública, pressupost, calendari, inspecció, avaluació d'indicadors, l'acompanyament dels professionals imprescindible, diversos elements que potser sortiran més tard en la xerrada. Moltes gràcies.
Molt bé. Thank you very much, Jordi Borja from l'Associació Catalana de Drets Sexuals i Reproductius. With Jordi, we have seen how we can take international standards and framework, above all the UNESCO one that Kathleen explained to us before. And he has shown that it is possible to contextualize this international framework in a context such as Catalonia or any other country in the world in order to make this implementation that it is still a challenge as possible. Now we are going to have an experience from non-formal education. We have just had a vision on the curricula, so on the compulsory education, and now we are going to see an example of experience from scouting and guiding. So Anna, Carles, please, from Escoltes Catalans, the floor is yours.
Moltes gràcies, Marina. Bon dia a totes i tots. Primer de tot, agrair a Catesco i a l'Associació de Drets Sexuals i Reproductius per l'organització d'aquest seminari i també a la resta de participants per explicar les seves experiències i punts de vista al voltant de l'educació sexual integral. Jo avui vinc en representació d'Escoltes Catalans, que per les que no ho sapigueu, Escoltes Catalans és l'Associació Catalana d'Escoltisme Laic, i que, així com a pinzellades bàsiques de la nostra associació, dir-vos que nosaltres som un moviment educatiu amb 43 agrupaments repartits arreu de Catalunya, de les quals en formen part unes 4.000 infants, joves i CAPs, que són les joves voluntàries que tenen el rol d'educadores i acompanyen a infants i joves. També tenim una estructura de més de 30 persones voluntàries que formen part dels equips associatius i fan suport a aquests agrupaments, i ens organitzem en grups d'infants i joves dels 6 als 18 anys, dividits per grups d'edats per generacions. Ens trobem un cop a la setmana els dissabtes i també tenim diversos espais de convivència a través de campaments i excursions. El nostre objectiu principal és l'educació a través de valors per contribuir a la transformació personal, col·lectiva i social. I pel tema que ens ocupa avui, cal destacar que nosaltres tenim una aposta molt clara com a associació per treballar des de la perspectiva feminista i des de la participació infantil i juvenil. Llavors, per què creiem nosaltres que és important treballar aquesta educació sexual integral i com ho fem? Primer de tot, per entendre les nostres propostes, crec que també cal entendre l'anàlisi del que partim. Nosaltres fem una anàlisi que identifica que hi ha un sistema patriarcal que determina com socialitzem i concretament com es construeix la nostra sexualitat. I en aquest cas detectem que socialitzem en un sistema que implica un biaix entre la construcció del rol de les sexualitats de nenes, nens i identitats dissidents. Aquesta construcció el que fa és imposar tabús, desinformació, control i, per tant, el nostre punt de partida per entendre el treball amb educació sexual és des d'un aspecte ampli de la sexualitat, no reduint-ho a les relacions sexoafectives. Creiem que la sexualitat és quelcom intrínsec als humans i, per tant, està present a tots el cicle de la nostra vida. Des d'aquest paradigma entenem que cal educar i acompanyar a infants i joves a totes les etapes educatives des d'aquesta globalitat. També fem educació des de la vessant positiva de la sexualitat. Parlem de benestar, de bon tracte, de decidir, de consciència del cos, de consentiment, límits i de descobriment. I ho fem amb una mirada feminista. Reconeixem aquesta anàlisi del que parlàvem abans i, per tant, treballem en clau de revertir totes aquestes desigualtats i opressions i fem l'educació sexual sempre des de la voluntarietat i el consentiment, perquè és el que té sentit per nosaltres. Perquè si creiem que acompanyem perquè infants i joves visquin la seva sexualitat com a quelcom lliure i consentit, l'educació que fem envers això també ho ha de ser. I per últim, entenem que aplicar una mirada feminista també ens obliga a revisar les metodologies que utilitzem per fer aquesta intervenció educativa. Per tant, revisem com eduquem, com fem participar infants i joves, com ens relacionem, com intervenim en el seu dia a dia, etc. I des d'aquesta globalitat i per contrapartida, tota aquesta feina, el que a nosaltres ens ajuda és allunyar-nos de la perspectiva del terror sexual. Perquè creiem que no pot ser que una jove sàpiga abans què és una violació que no que conegui el seu propi cos o que sàpiga què és el plaer. I d'altra banda, perquè sabem que la nostra aposta determinada per l'educació sexual integral és també una peça clau en la prevenció i l'abordatge de les violències sexuals en la infància i adolescència. Per fer aquesta feina tenim un protocol d'abordatge de violències sexuals en la infància i altres maltractaments que és resultat d'un procés participatiu que es va dur a terme en el marc d'un projecte de l'entitat entre els anys 2018 i 2022. Creiem que tota aquesta feina era important una vegada més per defugir d'aquest discurs del terror sexual sobre tot allò que ens podria passar, però també des de la voluntat de posar nom a allò invisible. Perquè sabem les situacions que passen i creiem que cal donar eines per tal de reduir factors de risc, per ajudar a detectar quan es donen situacions inadequades i abusives i per donar eines per la resolució d'aquestes situacions de tots els nivells. Llavors, relacionem aquestes feines perquè creiem que les infants i joves puguin identificar quines conductes i situacions els aporten benestar, també les ajuda a identificar quines no. Per tant, perquè creiem que si saps què és el plaer, pots diferenciar-ho d'un abús. Tot aquest treball el fem mitjançant un procés participatiu, que per nosaltres és un eix central de tota la feina que fem. Involucrem a tots els agents, famílies, infants, joves, CAPs i l'estructura associativa. I creiem que aquesta participació és un pilar fonamental perquè ens ajuda a recollir la mirada de totes les persones que participen al dia a dia de l'entitat. També perquè tot aquest mateix procés l'utilitzem com a procés formatiu i de sensibilització. I per últim, perquè ens ajuda a legitimar aquest procés i a tenir una mirada compartida i a remar totes cap al mateix lloc. Llavors, l'objectiu de tot plegat és que la feina en prevenció i abordatge de violències esdevingui una realitat a tota l'entitat i podem dir que actualment aquest projecte està aterrat a l'associació. Està aterrat a nivell local, amb responsables de violències en la infància a tots els agrupaments i també amb la creació d'un àmbit d'equitat que neix d'una aposta associativa per reconèixer i transversalitzar la perspectiva feminista a l'entitat. Aquest àmbit neix amb la idea de donar eines i acompanyar els agrupaments per tenir referents en quant a violències sexuals en la infància i a violències masclistes i també per poder assegurar aquesta transversalitat de la perspectiva de gènere a tota l'associació i donar els recursos i l'ajuda necessària a la tasca educativa del dia a dia dels agrupaments perquè puguin desenvolupar tota aquesta tasca i puguin implementar totes aquestes idees. Per últim, si parlem de reptes, en el nostre cas, reptes que tenim per endavant, per una banda, seria continuar implicant a les famílies en aquest procés, perquè creiem que són un eix central, però també perquè creiem que ens dona l'oportunitat de traspassar aquests aprenentatges i aquesta cultura del bon tracte als nuclis familiars i a altres espais educatius. Després, seguir demanant a les administracions que posin a l'abast els recursos necessaris i les facilitats perquè les que estem a primera línia educant a la infància i adolescència ho puguem fer amb els recursos i qualitat que mereixem. I per donar forma a tot això, crec que podríem englobar les nostres apostes per dir que creiem en donar la informació a infants i joves, fer valdre el dret al propi cos, treballar tot això des de l'interès de les nostres infants i joves i fer-ho des de la quotidianitat, perquè al final si defensem que la sexualitat és quotidiana i és algo intrínsec en totes les etapes de la nostra vida, hem de poder fer aquesta feina des de la nostra tasca quotidiana i en tots els aspectes. I així seria una mica com treballem nosaltres aquests temes. Gràcies.
Thank you very much, Anna from Escoltes Catalans. We are now moving to Pakistan, to the other part of the world, and we are going to know a little bit about the organization AHUNG. They are doing great comprehensive sexuality education programs and above all are doing also work on advocacy, trying to conscious society and to change the policies that affect young people in all these issues. So we have Sheena Hadi here. The floor is yours, Sheena.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for inviting me. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Great. All right. So my name is Sheena Hadi, as I was introduced, and I'm the executive director of an organization called AHUNG. AHUNG is based in Karachi, Pakistan, and we're a local NGO that's been working on sexual and reproductive health and rights for approximately 30 years. AHUNG was really started as a reproductive health project, and the goal was the prevention of HIV transmission. And at that time, when people went into the field, what they realized was that this was being done in an absolute vacuum because nobody had information about their body, about their reproductive and sexual rights. And so it was very difficult to talk about anything in that context. And so, AHUNG was founded from that. And there was always from the very beginning an emphasis on young people and the idea that to equip young people with knowledge and skills around sexual and reproductive health and rights means that we would be able to prevent rather than to diagnose and treat later on, which we know is always, much better socially. So that's where the program started from, and it was largely community-based to begin with. And then the evolution became towards trying to build institutional sustainability. And for SRHR, of course, that means that comprehensive sexuality education is really one of the direct routes that we can take for that kind of sustainability that we're looking at in this programming. So, on that note, I think one of the most common questions I've been asked in my 20-year affiliation with AHUNG has been, how do you actually work on comprehensive sexuality education in a place like Pakistan, which is traditionally a very conservative country with strong social and religious codes, and also a very patriarchal society by tradition as well. And I think resistance comes in many forms. And sometimes I think those are the most outwards ones that we look at. And globally, if we look at CSE and we look at the resistance around CSE, there is something inherently about equipping young people with sexual and reproductive health and knowledge and agency that creates a lot of discomfort. So I don't think we are where we would want to be in most parts of the world with regards to CSE, and I think Pakistan is no different. But I think that resistance, the subtle resistance, is also something that is very challenging when it comes to CSE implementation. And we see that in many forms. In our case, some of the challenges, were that we would be able to develop the programs and start the implementation, but then when it got down to the teachers implementing, they would water down the material, or they wouldn't feel comfortable teaching it the way that we wanted. So I think what that resulted in was that we really needed to do a lot of trial and error. So how can we run the CSE programs most effectively in the context that we're in? So I wanted to just share some of the experience that we've had in terms of what has worked and not worked in our context to face both those the most overt challenges as well as some of the subtle challenges. And, I think that trial and error has to be specific to every country. But I think some of the learnings that perhaps are cross-cutting, and some of them have already been raised as well, is the first is that, we really need to ensure that we are developing a local curriculum. So, of course, we have borrowed and we have looked at curricular content that has come from around the world. But to truly make the curriculum something that is going to be homegrown, that is going to be tested, and the input is going to come from local actors, I think that is what is going to shape a curriculum that has the potential for success. As Susanna pointed out, that really means that a lot of the content needs to be decolonized in the approach. And, sometimes that also involves certain degrees of compromises that we have to make. In Pakistan, for example, we don't use the term comprehensive sexuality education because we realized that that was such a block to even having a conversation about what the purpose of the curriculum was, that we use life skills-based education as the terminology around CSE. But a lot of the objectives that we're talking about are exactly the same. And so some of these things that feel like compromises actually are negotiations that you're making in the environment to contextualize and to be able to even start some of the conversations around CSE. Another example is that our initial approaches were often ones in which we really focused a lot on individual decision-making and agency of young people, and that's critically important. But some of the challenges that we were having was the framing of that. So Pakistan is a very collectivist culture. Family and social acceptance is a very critical part of being a young person. And when we got young people's input on something like child early and forced marriage, what came back was that approximately over 95% of young people said that they don't want to make that decision individually in terms of who they marry. They would want it to be something that has family input. So it's a very delicate balance because we also know that that can be used as a justification to oppress at times as well, and to keep young people within a particular mode or a way of operating that people want. But at the same time, we also started to recognize that when we talk about individual agency, we have to do it in a way that really fits what would support a young person in making those decisions without ostracizing them and alienating them from their society. So that's just one example in terms of the way in which over time our curriculum started to adapt and started to take into account what the context of a Pakistani young person is. I think another very important part that we have learned is that can only come with meaningful youth engagement. So again, as was pointed out, if we tokenize young people and their input into what their needs are, then we will never really reach those conclusions in terms of what values they hold, what their needs are, how we can meet those needs most effectively. Another key learning of ours has really been that we have to start very early. So our programs used to start in the middle school years. And what we started to recognize was that so much of CSE programming has to do with gender And so much of it has to do with really those gender norms and challenging those gender norms to be able to then work on so many of the aspects that we want to work on CSE. And by the middle school years, so much of that was cemented already. And so when we started working on expanding the curriculum, we started taking it further and further back. And really now it's by 3-4 years old, we can work on CSE. We can work on things like, body protection, on understanding consent, on friendship, on respect. And the earlier we bring these things in, we realize the more meaningful the curriculum becomes as we go into the older years. We also have learned that, complete stakeholder input is important. So again, one of the, I think, earlier things that we used to do was to try to go to, young people and the families and the teachers and perhaps circumvent some of the actors, social actors that we thought we would get resistance from. But what we started to realize is that input from all social actors is important because ultimately that curriculum has to be something that is holistic, that takes into account the entire community. Otherwise, there is going to be that backlash that comes from somewhere. So it's better to have those conversations. It's better to be transparent, and that can actually prevent some of that social backlash from happening because there is more, ownership that is taken at the community level when we bring in all of the actors involved. But having said that, we also know that there will be some elements of backlash. We have faced that, and many of those who have implemented CSE have faced degrees of backlash. Ultimately, we are trying to change power differentials in society. And when we do that, we know there is going to be elements of backlash, and we know there is going to be, elements of those social actors who do not want those changes, particularly, I think, when it comes to gender. And so it's really important, we've learned, that we create a network of supporters, and that can come in the form of media or journalists. It can come in the form of community influencers. It can come in the form of champions within the government. But those actors need to be sensitized. They need to be working with you, and there needs to be ongoing communication so that we can prepare for how we're going to deal with any kind of social questioning or backlash that comes back. Another thing that I think is very important, which has been mentioned before, is innovation, and working in new ways to get information through to individuals, working on new techniques. In Pakistan, one of the biggest challenges we have is that while we are trying to mainstream CSE, we know that most individual children and young people are not in school. So by the upper middle school years, we only have about a 30% enrollment, particularly for girls. So how do we continue to overcome that? So how can we innovate to try to access young people through other mechanisms? And that's something that I think is very important for programs overall, as well as is innovation and how we can make sure that we are up to date with emerging problems as well. So, one of the things that came out of the COVID-19 pandemic was online. So online bullying, online, how does a young person operate online? So that was something very foreign to young people, and we had to really innovate around that and build in new content with regards to CSE. And then the final thing that I would say in terms of our learnings has really been about how we can function, how we can build in intersectionalities. And so intersectionalities, I think, is very important because we have to find mechanisms by which CSE can build bridges with other kinds of programming. One important entry point of ours has been child protection. And there has been cases where child protection issues have come up. That's actually where we were able to leverage the government to integrate CSE based on that. And of course, then we expand out the program a lot more than that, but we need to look at those opportunities. One of the emerging opportunities, I think, in the world, and particularly in Pakistan, is climate change, because, we're a climate vulnerable country. So I think those are some of the learnings, the key learnings that we've had. I'm just going to wrap up by adding a couple of quick points in terms of some things that I think we need to just continue considering. I think we know that CSE works. I think we've seen the data. And of course, we know that, that data is supporting that we need to go into CSE. I think one of the things that we've seen is that girls are actually far more receptive than boys, at least in our programs in Pakistan. And I think that that's where we need to keep thinking about how we can make these programs work for both, because again, boys are the power differentials are there, and how we can continue making sure that we're having a community-based approach, because boys and girls at the end of the day can only hold so much power and negotiate so much, and also how we can make sure that these programs have longevity. So that comes down to funding, that comes down to the way in which we're setting them up, because it's taken us about 2 decades to get our program to where it is right now. So this is a long-term investment that we need to think about, and it's not something that just happens overnight, particularly when we're looking at advocacy and looking at sustainable programming and building system strength with CSE. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheena. Sorry for pressing you a little bit to finish, as we are running a little bit out of time, but it was really inspiring, and there were a lot of key concepts that I think that we if we had time to have other side events, it would be great to explore on that, ecosystems, intersectionality, also the relationship with the climate change challenge and so on. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, in fact, to all our speakers for sharing these powerful experiences. In fact, I would ask that all speakers, also Kathleen and Susanna, Jordi, Anna, and Sheena, could join us now, so we could open the camera so that we could have a final insight, a very short but inspiring final insight of Susanna and Kathleen regarding those experiences. Susanna, maybe you can start.
Thank you very much, Marina, and congratulations to the speakers. Your experience demonstrates that it needs a comprehensive strategy involving actors thinking that we want to change and to strengthen positive social norms. It's about systemic change, so it needs the involvement of everyone. And I want to highlight the importance of breaking silos among social movements, feminism, ecological justice, LGBTQ plus movement. It needs to be all connected because people and bodies integrate all these aspects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susanna. And Kathleen, what would be your final message regarding these experiences?
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure to hear from all of the colleagues, and congratulations on your work. I feel like what we've heard is really that CSE is definitely more than knowledge. It is empowerment, and it is transformative for not only individuals, but the communities, their families in which they live. And this is especially true when programs reflect national context, like we heard from Jordi, from Sheena, when they start early and they're age and developmentally appropriate. I love the emphasis on being learner-centered that we heard from especially Anna and Sheena as well. How do we engage young people to ensure that these programs are really responding to the diverse lived experiences? And then creating those linkages between the formal education system and non-formal. Each of us has a role to play. And if we continue to work together in partnership, then despite the challenges, the change is very possible. And we see that good quality CSE does not just inform, but it transforms. So I will leave on that note. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Kathleen. Now, as a final remarks of the event, I would like to give the floor to Sílvia Aldabert from L'Associació de Drets Sexuals i Reproductius, who will conclude the session. But let me tell you that as we have had some problems with the translation, we are going to review the video so that we can be sure that everything is well understood, okay? So we hope that anything you may have missed during the session today, we would be able to recover it afterwards. So Sílvia, please, you close the session. Thank you very much.
Bé, moltes gràcies, Marina, moltes gràcies per organitzar aquest acte i gràcies a totes les que encara sou aquí. L'avantatge de ser l'última és que parlar després d'aquestes ponents que han estat fantàstiques doncs em deixa poc a dir, és a dir, que així també ho farem més breu i la majoria de vosaltres podreu anar a dinar, que ja és hora. Jo, a part d'agrair tota aquesta experiència, tots aquests sabers que hem posat a sobre la taula, sobre la pantalla avui aquí, sí que m'agradaria com intentar recuperar una mica el fil des del principi, des de la Kathleen, és a dir, tenim l'evidència científica, tenim l'emergència social, social i política, com deia també la Susana, tenim els itineraris, els continguts, les bones pràctiques que hem vist amb el Jordi, amb l'Anna. Tenim l'experiència que ens ha traslladat la Xena de fer educació sexual en contextos de resistència. És a dir, tenim tot això i ho tenim i ho compartim. Per tant, jo crec que ara mateix això ja ha passat a ser, més que una emergència social, crec que és un deute històric. A Catalunya, sense cap tipus de dubte, l'educació sexual integral ha estat una aposta des dels moviments feministes, des dels moviments socials, històricament, però és evident que tenim per davant un repte important, que és transformar no només aquesta demanda social, aquesta emergència social i aquesta voluntat que suposadament políticament hi ha, transformar-la en una realitat, que sigui efectiva i que realment pugui ser una educació transformadora i una educació que faciliti a les noves generacions uns espais i unes societats més justes i més saludables també. Jo crec que el que sí que volem traslladar també des de l'associació és que no volem fer-ho des de la por. Estem en un context històric, un context social on la por sempre, cada dia ens està fent com més pressió a tots els entorns i amb el tema de l'educació sexual també. Llavors, l'educació sexual històricament ha rebut tota aquesta pressió de la por per no quedar-te embarassada, per no agafar el VIH, no agafar una ITS, la por a no viure violències masclistes i ara mateix també la por a tots aquests discursos d'odi en contra d'aquesta educació sexual i d'aquesta educació feminista. Però no perdem el nord en aquest sentit, no els hi donem aquesta batalla per guanyada i no caiguem a la trampa perquè no volem discutir drets fonamentals. Ja tenim aquesta discussió feta i l'educació sexual forma part dels drets sexuals i reproductius, forma part dels drets humans de les persones, per tant, això no està en discussió. No està en discussió perquè són drets fonamentals i perquè ja hem vist que l'evidència científica i les pràctiques que s'han portat a terme ens donen resultats tremendament positius allà on els hem vist. Per tant, ara sí, ja fem-ho des del treball de l'agència, des del plaer, des de la voluntat de garantir aquesta sobirania corporal i crear i fomentar aquestes relacions afectives, aquestes relacions socials saludables i felices per totes, per les més joves i també per les adultes. Per tant, dir-vos que estem preparades i, a més, que hi ha demanda, és a dir, la tenim, la demanda a Catalunya i arreu del món, però aquí ho sabem. Sabem que infants i joves volen fer-ho, que docents estan desitjant, sisplau, fer-ho, i ho estan demanant a tot arreu, i que les famílies també volen fer-ho. Per tant, ara sí, i li agafo i li torno també aquest embat una mica al Gabriel, que al principi ens ha obert, i aquesta voluntat política que també s'està traslladant a l'agenda pública aquí a Catalunya des del govern actualment, de tirar endavant aquests nous models i plans d'educació sexual a partir del curs que ve, sisplau, que sigui una realitat, que sigui efectiva i que aquests recursos que s'hauran de destinar siguin també per acompanyar a través i amb expertesa a aquests centres i a aquests docents per no deixar-los sols i soles davant d'aquest repte, que és un repte majúscul. I jo, dit això, crec que agrair-vos a totes haver estat aquí i a tu, Marina, la conducció de l'acte, que et torno la paraula tota teva. Gràcies.
Okay, gracias, Silvia. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you, special, really great. Thank you, because it has been an honor having here Sheena, Jordi, and Anna, and above all, Susanna and Kathleen that have inspired us a lot, and that have allowed that we could face this challenge that we have and this opportunity that we have by developing comprehensive sexuality education around the world. So thank you all very much. Thank you, the attendees, and thank you, the translation also. And see you maybe next time in other site events. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moltes gràcies.